Workshop session of September 9th, 2024 will now come to order. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on the Methuen Public Schools website. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Member DeZoglio. Member Donovan.
Here.
Member Keegan.
Present.
Member Maxwell.
Here.
Member Shabilia. Here. Member Willett.
Here.
Mayor Perry. Do we not have?
May I have a motion and a second to accept the agenda for September 9th, 2024 as presented?
Do we have to make a motion to accept the amended agenda? Okay. Okay.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Member Shabilia, seconded by Member Willett. May I have, all in favor, say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Yes.
You do have to do a roll call if you are to have the mayor on.
He's not on Zoom yet, so that's it. All right, we can do a roll call.
As
That's
long
fine.
as that's captured,
Aye.
that it's not unanimous.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, perfect.
All right. Superintendent, will you please introduce our flag salute student for this evening?
I would love to introduce, if Logan could come on up to the podium. And with Logan tonight, let me turn around, see who's with him. I think we have Mrs. Goyette back there somewhere. Do we have Mrs. Goyette? What's that? She's not here yet? I can read it for him. Is that okay if I read it? I'm on, just so we can.
Thank you.
This is a new perspective for me. This is great. So Logan Scuderi is a fourth grade student in Mrs. Saltzman's class at the Tenney Grammar School. Logan lives with his mother, Bridget, his father, Sebastian, his younger brother, Leland, and his dog, Cocoa Puffs. I love that. Logan's favorite part of the day is PE. Logan reports that he loves PE because of the activities the teachers plan. He also enjoys running because it helps your muscles to be strong and healthy. He loves STEM. Ooh, I'm just a guy from my own head. He really loves STEM. Logan told me that his favorite lesson in his STEM class was building a catapult this year. That's a lot. Mrs. Boscheman, our lower school STEM teacher, stated, since the first grade, Logan has exemplified what it means to be an engineer in the STEM classroom at the Tenney. He always comes to each class excited to try something new. Logan is a true team player, inviting his peers to work with him, whether we are building a model to solve a real problem, like popsicles melting at a soccer game, or designing our own choose-your-own-adventure stories with code via Scratch. Logan is kind, puts forth his best effort, and brings his own special take to each of our projects. I would not be surprised if we all use one of his inventions someday. Logan revealed that he is working on an invention right now. It is still in the works. He is just waiting to get that 3D printer, and he will be able to finish his project. Are Mom and Dad behind me laughing at that one? All right, it's on order, it's coming. When Logan is not at school, he plays ice hockey. He is on the Squirts 1 team. He states he likes to be on the ice and prefers to play middle center, and he would like to try goalie. In his spare time, he says he likes to go metal detecting and spending time with his family. That's so cool. This summer, he had many adventures, from camping in Maine to visiting Cape Cod to attending a big family party at his aunt's house. Logan's mother states, as a family, we enjoy going on vacation, watching movies, playing outside with the neighbors, going to the trampoline park, swimming, going to the beach, metal detecting, going to the parks, and going to breakfast and dinner. Logan thought deeply about what makes the Tenney a special place to learn and grow. His response kindly recognized everyone in our school community. He stated, all of the teachers really work together. The custodians keep it clean for us and safe, and everyone tries their best to get along and cooperate. His current teacher, Mrs. Salzman, stated, I have only known him for a short time, but in that time I am learning that he is kind and he wants to do well at school and is a model for his peers in the classroom. His third grade teacher, Miss Berard, reported, "Logan is one of the kindest and most hardworking students I have worked with. He sets an amazing example for everyone around him, and my favorite aspect of Logan is his compassion and open-mindedness. He is always willing to give a helping hand to anyone who needs it." His mom shared, "What makes Logan special is his need to make sure everyone is happy and feeling loved. He genuinely cares about everyone's feelings. He is also a great big brother," which was evident in his response to what makes the Tenny so special. "Logan, we know you will do great things. We can't wait to see what you do in the future." Logan, along with everyone I spoke with, thinks Logan will be an inventor someday. Miss Berard is confident that someday in the future you will see him on TV with one of your inventions in running or for an elected position in helping your community. We might have a politician on our hands. Your family envisions you being an inventor and someone who's on the West Coast, mostly just enjoying the most life has to offer. I always say this world is too small for Logan. He's such an old soul, and you know that when you talk to him, but he's going to accomplish great things in life. We just know it. Congratulations, Logan, for being our flag salute tonight. You ready? Okay.
I'll hold it.
Okay, hold it right up to you.
All right.
When you're ready, we're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent job, my friend. Now, go get your mom and dad, because they're in camera, because we're gonna take some pictures right here, and I have a letter and a pin to give you, okay? Tell them to come on up. Yeah, whole family, come on. Come on up. Everybody involved.
Go ahead, right up. Right up there. The superintendent.
Yeah, please do. Do you have a phone you'd like to take a photograph? Someone has one. Okay, I'll grab it. Thank you. Of course. All right, jump in.
Don't be shy. Go right up in there. Eyes up here, say cheese. Nice job.
Make sure he doesn't poke himself and put that pin back in that envelope.
Great. Has anyone signed up for public participation? Oh, I think you got another one.
It'll be like, Ryan's gonna like
Okay, great. Allison Dwyer? And please, when you come up, state your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Okay. My name is Allison Dwyer, and I'm a school nurse at the Tenney School. So I'm here as the union rep for the Methuen school nurses, speaking here on the group's behalf about concerns about unsafe nurse staffing. To summarize, we've seen a significant decline in nurse staffing since about the middle of last year when our former nursing director resigned. At the time, she was subbing about 50% of the time, which would say we would need more nurses, not less. However, after that, the float nurse position was eliminated. This was also done, it's a union position, it was done without discussion. There were other nurses who resigned whose positions weren't posted. That float nurse was put into a building role while she was open, with the fact that she was due to have her baby at the beginning of September. We did have a long-term sub last year who was willing to commit to another year, but was not signed on. She now works for another district. Another nurse left because she had been put on the incorrect salary scale. She had been willing to waive back pay, but the district was not willing to do that, so she left to get appropriately paid at another district. Others have also resigned. There are a few others on leave. The long-term sub positions weren't posted until August. Unfortunately, by that time, people who are searching for a school nurse job have probably taken jobs in other districts, so now we're really in a little bit of a crunch. So where that's leaving us right now is, for the most part, every building is running on a single nurse. The standard in the state, the minimum standard, is one nurse for every 500 children. We're obviously out of compliance with that. Every grammar school has over 1,000 students. The high school has over 2,000. And every nurse that is still working with us has daily concerns about their nursing license. We're very grateful for the health assistants that we have, very grateful. The one I work with is invaluable. These health assistants do help with our workload because the acuity of our building. So again, the minimum standard is 1 to 500, but that could be a building with students with very little or minor medical needs. Our buildings, I can say for myself, mine has 5 students with diabetes. The high school, I believe, has over 12 or 13. We have students with seizure disorders. We're doing tube feedings. There are other challenges. We also support a lot of mental health issues in the school. It is not uncommon that the first time a student reveals suicidal ideation or cutting, it's to the school nurse. None of us are doing care plans. I'm not approving new registrations, and neither is anyone else. We just do not have the time. So those students are just sitting there in limbo. Running the building with one nurse, it's not just out of compliance, it's not safe. In addition to that, this all leads into significant concerns about recruitment and retainment. New hires look for a dedicated nurse leader, a nursing director. Without that, I think a lot of them are just not even going to apply. The nurses that we do are able to recruit. If they don't have a very solid and comfortable orientation, they probably will not stay. I'm also worried about the team that we do have left. I'm concerned that they may start looking. We appreciate the communications from the superintendent's office on this. However, given all the challenges, we just don't see that this is a problem that's going to be solved anytime soon. So we were looking to have the school committee provide additional support on this issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jade Jalbert.
Good evening. My name is Jade Jalbert, 6 Lady Slipper Lane. So before this weekend, there were a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, but obviously this weekend happened. Over the weekend, I've sent many emails, some to the school committee, but the most to Dr. Kwong specifically. So Dr. Kwong, first and foremost, thank you for your time and your prompt response to every one of my emails. It was a lot of time on your part and patience, and thank you. It didn't go unnoticed. The only piece of the overall issue that I would like to discuss, the issue that I still have a problem with, is the fact that the child that threatened the Timony is or will have a meeting at the school. I mentioned this in the emails, but to me, it's akin to me threatening any one of you and then being invited to dinner with your family. It's pretty ridiculous. A meeting at the police department would be more fitting to demonstrate the gravity of the situation. A meeting at the central administration office would show the community that the threat is being taken seriously and that the student will be banned from the campus, at least temporarily. That's really my biggest issue with the whole thing still. I don't understand why a meeting with a child that threatened to bomb in a school is going to be held at the school that he threatened. That is not okay to anybody. It doesn't matter that it's after school. There are still students and teachers and staff in the building. So that is the one thing that I would like to have you guys all talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. Kara Blatt?
Hi, Kara Blatt, 10 Meadow Lane, Westford. I am a co-president of the MEA Teachers Union. We are here tonight to support the nurses and their critical shortage that we are seeing, and we support them 110%. The amount of care and compassion they do for all of our population is immense, and we really are supporting them to get the pay and what they need to really do their job as they want. Unfortunately, due to the shortage, it's really hard for some of our critically need and medically fragile kids to get what they need in a timely manner, as well as any other student in the building. So please support the nurses. Thank you.
All right, there's nobody else on the list, and we received a few emails. I want to remind the public that when you send an email, your name and address must be on the email in order for it to be read. For those who were unable to get their name and address to Martha before the meeting, we ask you to send it to her, and we will read it next time. Thank you. This is from Jillian Kelly, 14 Meeting House Road. Hello, I am unable to attend tonight due to sports, and because it's being held in the same location as one of the threats that I don't feel enough has been given to the public to make us feel comfortable. I am hoping to see this weekend's event spoken about, specifically, where are we in the punishments? I believe that first offenses for something so drastic and emotionally, mentally distressing qualifies for an immediate expulsion, credible or not. My child's mental health, emotional health, physical health are all important. I hope these two kids know how much they have messed with our community and take full accountability. These children need to look at the school, city individuals involved and in the face and apologize for wasting community resources and instilling fear in our community. To me, this should be considered a form of domestic terrorism. I strongly recommend an adoption of a zero-tolerance policy for this type of behavior to stress the seriousness of the matter and deter any additional threats. Apologies if you are reading this and these events were caused by your child. I do not think your child should have the privilege of state education because that's what it is. It's a privilege. Cynthia Frazee, 135 Harris Street. Dear Superintendent Kwong and school committee members, I am a lifelong resident of Methuen, and my son has attended the Marsh and is now a senior at Methuen High School. Can Methuen get metal detectors in the high school, as we have in all our courthouses and airports? To have the bags scanned every day would help keep all our children safe and stop weapons at the door. Thank you, Cynthia Frazee. Jade Unit, 69 Gulf Ave. Hello, my name is Jade Unit, and my son was one of the Pathway students that was moved halfway through the previous school year. As each school has their own Pathways program, now, I would like to know what is being done to help provide training and resources to the staff in order to help the children with ASD that are in the Pathways program. Thank you, Jade Unit. Shannon Quinn, 83 Pleasant Street. Good evening, school committee. I am writing to you today in regards to the shortage of nursing staff at the Tenney and district-wide as a mother of a type 1 diabetic third grader, and on behalf of the medically complex students that would not be getting adequate care if our amazing nurse Allison is not able to come in for the day. This is very unsettling thought. From what I understand, the legal ratio for nurses to students in Massachusetts is 1 to 500. This is not safe. Even when our staff is here and the amount of students they see is astronomical, that they see. How are you going to remedy this? I know we can't pull these angels from the sky, but it is a very serious issue that needs prompt attention. What is the plan when there is no nurse on site to treat my child? Am I expected to leave work to bolus my child for snack or lunch or treat his lows myself? Thank you, Shannon Quinn. At this time, we will close public participation portion of the meeting. If you cannot make the meeting in person for public participation, you can send an email to Martha Sorois at masorois@methuen.k12.ma.us before 3 p.m. on the day of the school committee meeting. The email must include your name and address. Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of June 24th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member DeZoglio, second by Member Willett. Roll call, please.
Discussion or no?
Oh, discussion, I'm sorry. Yes, discussion. Member Maxwell?
So I had a few concerns with the minutes during June 24th. I felt like they were kind of, I don't want to say inaccurate, but a lot of information was left out, and which is funny because it's kind of wordy, but a lot of important information was left out of these minutes that happened during the meeting. And I know it was like a 5-hour meeting, 2 days. I know it was a lot to take in, but that's why I will be voting no against the minutes. I did try and reach out to Martha, but unfortunately I haven't been able to fix it.
Okay. Thank you. Member Shabilia?
So when Member Maxwell contacted me earlier in the week, I was able to go through and look at the minutes more closely than I probably normally would. I think that our minutes go well above and beyond the requirement for recording for minutes set forth by the inspector, what is it, Secretary of State's office, or whatever it is. So my opinion is I would like to motion to table both of these minutes, have the conversation about reducing the unnecessary recordings that are going into these, because it's just going to lead to this point was left out, this point wasn't. And I think it also makes Martha's life a whole lot easier, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier. It's a transcript versus minutes, right? We're kind of stuck in the middle of this, and we really, all of our videos are recorded, right? Our meetings are recorded, so if people wanted the details, they could watch. They don't have to read everything word for word. So I don't disagree. I think we've always been sort of stuck in this middle of not a transcript of, said word for word, but trying to capture everybody's point is challenging, especially when this meeting
Right.
was
And
long.
I had a conversation with the open meeting department at the Secretary of State's office, and their direction to me was, you really just need to record votes. It doesn't need to capture all
The
of
discussion?
the discussion. Our discussion is captured in a meeting.
That would clear up all kinds of time for.
So, I mean, we can validate that. I can get it in writing from them, and I think we should be meeting. I'm not really a big fan of meeting the minimum, but in this case, I think it's worth having the discussion.
Okay.
Member Willett?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I agree with Member Shabilia, and I understand where Member Maxwell is coming from. There was a tug of war at times at the city council where we had verbatim minutes and versus just brevity of minutes. And I would lean towards the brevity of minutes because there were minutes from the prior year that we had to approve when we came in as school committee members. And if anybody looks at the open meeting laws, that should not be done. So I think we improved the system dramatically, and I think personally, serving on the city council and also on the school committee, I think just having the roll call votes on the matters and lean towards brevity, but also shorten the timeline of the turnaround of the minutes. I think I would rather focus on that. And I understand the logic. It was from somebody that's not on the school committee anymore, and I'm not going to invoke the person's name, but I would rather have, again, just directness, brevity, short turnaround, honoring open meeting law. So I think we can accomplish that and honor what Member Shabilia is saying and what Member Maxwell is saying. So if we go in that direction, I think we can address the situation. And I think Martha has done an incredible job, but she has got mixed messages from a prior school committee. So we need to nip that in the bud right away. Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question? When you say table it, do you want to table these because to choose potentially to redo them to fit what the committee decides?
So
I'm curious about the table and discuss, or just do we move forward tonight and move forward with a new plan, like tonight's meeting?
So my thought was
Sure.
to table them because there are, I guess,
Discrepancy?
legitimate discrepancies that Member Maxwell raised in the June 24th meeting minutes.
Okay.
So my thought was, if we can remove the narrative portion or greatly reduce the narrative portion, that it may make things a little neater.
Okay.
But I mean,
So I guess the question for me is, are you asking us as your secretary to the committee and Martha as the secretary who drafts all the minutes, are you asking us to redo these for next meeting? And I don't know what that looks like.
So
Is
the-
there a vote or not, table, but
I
do you want me
just
to
had a quick
reproduce a
question.
different looking draft of them
Yeah.
with what?
I just had a quick question through the chair to Member Shabilia, and I'm not disputing your conversation with the Secretary of State's office.
no, 100% feel free. That's why I would get it
24
right.
years at the State House and 13 years of public service, I've always had things in writing. So could we get that advisory? Because if we can streamline the minutes and honor the recorded votes, and that's basically it, because if someone watches the meeting, unless we have a technical issue, then we really have to
Right.
document everything. So we might want to just set up some quick rules at the next meeting. But I think, like I said, if we have that legal advisory from the Secretary of State's office of, you have roll call votes, and that's it, and then public participation, participants, the soup and nuts quick thing, and then I'm all
Say
set with
something?
that. Because I could easily go into the minutes myself and say, well, I know I said something during a meeting and it wasn't included, but then it's like we're putting all of our focus on a person who's doing the minutes for us. And again, I think it was the prior school committee that was kind of messing with the process, and I want to just streamline it. I think the school committee, so far, what we've done is streamline a lot of things. So I want to move that in that direction. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Dr. Kwong, to your original question, correct me if I'm wrong, but the next vote to approve minutes would come in our next regular business session.
Correct.
Not at the next meeting.
Correct.
So I think that gives us time, if we can put on the next agenda this discussion, and I will get something in writing from the Secretary of State's office,
Okay.
that would give us plenty of time to make the appropriate decision.
So just an agenda item to discuss the format of the minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
And also just emphasize that, and again, based on the packet I received, it was that there has to be a 30-day turnaround period on the minutes, and that wasn't done by a prior committee.
When I get the official statement from the open meeting team, I will share it with Dr. Kwong and Attorney Maccaro's office. That way, if there's any input, we have it
Yeah.
before we come back to the table.
They definitely, I read that language, and that's why I had concerns about the minutes when I came in January. Thank you.
Okay.
Member DiZoglio?
I'm just listening to everybody, and this way has been here since I joined like 4 years ago. I'm all, because I know Martha does so much, and for her to write all these minutes is just absolutely insane. But however, the reason why we did that, from my knowledge of coming in, was because we have technical difficulties all the time and if we miss anything, we're also violating open meeting laws because we're not streamlining, having it on camera, and we're violating that as well. That's why we always had this transcript, from my knowledge of joining, because we couldn't rely on this technology. So I'm fine for streamlining it, but we also need to make sure our technology is also working before we do that, because we don't want to be caught saying, oh, we missed the meeting, and that we can't see what happened, and then you have a violation. Just saying, that's why they did it, because they couldn't rely on the technology. So that's from my knowledge of going into it. So I'm just saying, if we do that, we need to also make sure we're covering both ends of that.
Roulette?
I think I did emphasize that, is that as a backup, if we know we're not online and we're not covered and we have technical difficulties, we automatically should do verbatim, whatever that entails. But definitely, I agree with that, but I don't think we do that. I think the reason why we're in a media center is because the Searles building is notorious for technical difficulties, and we have a pretty good team here, and I think so far, we've had no technical difficulties this year, right?
No.
Okay, all right. But
I know, you might have just jinxed it.
you know, you're gonna go, you'll see the,
Would be today.
All right, then, do I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Moved by Member DiZoglio, second by Member Member Donovan. Roll
Can I
call,
just ask a
please.
question?
Oh, yes.
So are we tabling them to be edited, or are we tabling them to just do the, record the
We are
voting?
tabling them from voting on them,
Okay,
and the next meeting, we're going to decide what they're supposed to look like.
Okay.
And the following meeting, we'll vote on them again.
okay. Thank you.
No problem. Roll call?
Member DiZoglio,
Yes.
Member Donovan, Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell,
Yes.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett.
yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. Superintendent, staff reports, superintendent and assistant superintendent updates?
I think we have to vote on, there's one more set of minutes, I think. Is that right?
Oh, I thought we tabled them all.
No,
have to vote
we
on-
only tabled on one.
You tabled June 24th, you just need to do June,
I see,
July
okay.
16th.
Sorry. Can I have a motion to table the approval of
So
the minutes of July?
I think we have to take a motion to approve, and then someone has to make a motion to table.
Got it, okay. So may I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of July 16th, 2024?
So moved.
Moved by Member DiZoglio, second by Member Donovan. Discussion.
It's a privileged motion, I'm gonna make the motion to table and just bypass the discussion. It's the
All
same
right.
principle applies, we're just going
Sure.
to the next meeting
Second.
anyways.
All right, a motion to table by Member Willett, seconded by Member Maxwell. Discussion? I don't think so. Roll call.
Member DiZoglio.
Yes.
Member Donovan. Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell.
Yes.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett.
Yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right, staff reports, superintendent and assistant superintendent updates. It says there are none, but then any updates to this weekend's events?
Yes, that was the adjusted, amended note. I think after the chief of police and the mayor and I debriefed today, that the mayor and I thought that having this opportunity here as an update, obviously there's no memo or anything formal. I sent out 5 previous notifications and 2 press releases to the entire community. At this point, that is from the school point of view, that is likely going to be all of the information I can send out regarding the students and further actions against the students. And I know that there's a lot of opinions about that, but that is something that will likely happen. There might be further information from the police department, but as far as our, school actions and consequences, I'm certainly moving forward with everything I need to do in following the law and the process. I will say that the mayor and I did make a decision today, so hopefully some folks would appreciate the decision, that the meeting with the family will be in my office and not at the Timony School tomorrow. So we did make that decision because that was something that we can do. And I can't see behind me, so hopefully, because I think some of the folks behind me, the ones who emailed me the information. So I think, for me, there was a lot to debrief today, but a lot of positivity came out of today. I was able to, and I almost made it to all 6 buildings. I didn't quite get to the CGS today, but I made it to all of the other buildings. I spent the most of my time at the high school and the Timony this morning. I can't thank the chief enough for the conversations and communications over the weekend, but the support today I think was very helpful. The spirits were incredibly high as we were greeting staff and students at the high school. So that was really important for me to see and be a part of, and make sure that staff and parents and students saw me as well. So all reports in the buildings I were at today, that I was at today, were positive, so I'm happy to hear that as well. I did run, and I knew this would happen as well. I ran some comparative attendance data from today versus last year this same day, and attendance was lower, but remarkably not in the buildings that you probably would have expected to be as much lower, so that was interesting to us, but it was lower across the whole district today, and that is not, something that I did expect that today. So hopefully folks will feel a little more secure tomorrow to start sending their students back. We had a lot of, building checks, just everybody reminding, not getting comfortable in our safety procedures, of which we do have. So I think that was a positive thing that came out of this today. So Mayor, I don't know if you have something you want to add? Or no?
Sorry, I keep getting muted.
Okay.
Yeah, apologies. So the only thing I'd want to add, Superintendent, is I want the community to understand how much effort you and the chief put into this over the weekend. And I want to reassure our parents that nothing, absolutely nothing, is more important to all of us, and I know that's for you, than the safety of our students and community. Working together, lots of actions were undertaken, and I don't want to go through them all, including sweeping every building overnight. But I wanted to take a minute, and since you and I and the chief were talking well into the overnight hours, I want to commend you and the chief for how quickly you moved to address this, and to reinforce for parents that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated. We will do the maximum in our power to make sure that people understand this is not funny, this is not a joke, and this is no way to conduct yourself. So again, my compliments, as I said earlier today, to you and the chief. I really do appreciate the professional approach that you guys brought forward, and it made my job far easier. So I thank you.
Thank you for that. And I know I said it today, and I'm trying to, it's hard to interpret everything in emails that I want to say, and I'm being very careful about word choice when I send those emails out. But I think for me, one of the most important aspects of last night's occurrences was that the first person to send me the information was a student. And I think just getting the information as much and as quickly as I did from people who were texting me the image, people were emailing me, students, multiple groups of students, parents. The quickness of that, making sure somebody had the information to react, is why we were able to respond. We weren't sure how far into the evening it was going to go, and that made it a little more challenging. But for me, I think that was, I asked some of the principals to just talk about that the students responding and saying, this just popped up and I don't like it, right? And somebody needs to know about it. I think that was really commendable and important for all parties. And so I must have gotten probably between 30 and 35 emails, texts within a 20-minute period. And again, that was, for me, pretty outstanding that people were just informing me, making sure I was fully aware of what was going on. So very helpful in that situation. So I do want to say that safety is something that we are and always have been focused on, and we will continue to focus on it. So that's really the only update I have that you don't already have the information of from today.
Member DeZoglio?
Yep, thank you. So just giving my sense of it, I also want to commend the officers that were doing the sweep. I came by here last night because once I got the image from someone that I knew and then got the email all at once, I came down here. I just want to commend the officers that were very good at communicating with me when I came down here. They talked to me. They told me exactly what they were going to do. So I want to commend all the officers doing that, especially when they did not know if there was danger in here and they were willing, well, they had to do their job. So I want to commend those officers as well. But also, I'm not going to put too much into it, but I saw Member Shabilia put the legislation up, and that's the thing. We can only do so much policies, but our state holds us to these certain laws. And again, I totally agree with you, and we are gonna, we do not allow a zero tolerance policy for this, but the state is also holding us to certain standards as well. So I would commend you. Trust me, I've already made a phone call to our legislators saying enough is enough with the discipline and all that. Those things need to change in our schools because only a few, and this is just my opinion, a few bad apples are spoiling a bunch. And that's throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the country, I think. This mentality needs to change, not just in these type of events, but in the classroom as well. So that's just responding back to the parents that I got saying, Ryan, you need to do something, you need to do something. I can only do so much as a school committee member. I would recommend you to call your representatives and senators and say enough is enough. So, thank you.
Member Willett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think the way the kids approached it, that you see something, you say something, worked perfectly. I also want to commend the parents for also reaching out to the authorities in an expeditious fashion. I want to commend the Perry administration and the chief. We really can't go into detail, but we've invested millions of dollars into security upgrades across the community. And we will need to continue to upgrade security across the community. We've had the happenstance of copycats. And to me, when you invoke a bomb threat, you sacrifice your participation of going to a public school. You, as the mayor indicated, we will invoke the maximum penalty allowed under state law. And we've had prior conversations as a school committee that back in 2012, and the superintendent is well aware of this, the session law, chapter 222, that made major changes and put the impetus on the school system to accommodate these severe criminals, problematic students, serious bullies, so to speak, egregious behavior, that we would have to financially pay for their education elsewhere. I believe that's an unfunded mandate from the state that needs to be corrected. And when you make a bomb threat, you should not be returning back to that school. Now, I want to emphasize that these are allegations, and we have a system of jurisprudence, innocent until proven guilty. They'll go through court proceedings. But when you emphasize services for criminals over victims, there's a balance that needs to be realigned in our society. We need to be zero tolerance, tough on these matters. When you scream fire in a theater and there's no fire, that goes back to decades, if not centuries, of jurisprudence. You will be held accountable, and you don't need to have matches in your pocket. You scream fire and there's no fire, and there's a stampede of people that run out, and we don't know what could have been the repercussions. Let's say it was done during the school and people run out to their cars and there's mass panic. Children are entitled to education in our society. We need to provide the maximum protection under state and federal law, and I don't have any tolerance for that type of behavior. I don't care if you come from a broken home. I don't care if you have personal issues. And I value what the parents, it comes down to the parents telling their kids, and I've had conversations with my kids, online, do not do certain things. And it has to come from the parents telling their kids, this is not a joking matter. This is very serious. This is criminal. If anybody read the press release from the police chief, those are serious charges on those students. And the other person will face repercussions as well. And so, like Member Shabilia indicated, with corrective legislation, you have 200 representatives and senators at the State House. There was an imbalance with the juvenile justice laws back in 2012 that have to be realigned. We know it. The legislative delegation, it predates them. They've been very responsive to our calls on the budget, and I know they're going to be very responsive to our inquiries about making corrections to this law. And if we need to have our attorney in a separate meeting and have formulation of a letter to the State House, we need to make some serious changes back to having a balance of, you cause a situation, you really forfeit a return back to that school. End of story, and that's it. But again, these are allegations, and we will undertake the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Shabilia?
So I'm not going to monologue, and I'm not going to re-thank everybody. I can't even imagine how many messages you got, because I've got more in the last 24 hours than I have collectively over the last 8 months. So I can only imagine. However, I think that given the anxiety surrounding the situation, it may be helpful for some education for the community to understand kind of what the process is, what discipline would look like, how it would be investigated, deliberated, and dealt with, and not in specific terms, but in just contextually under the law. Because I think that was where a lot of the frustration came from, is people don't understand school law. It's just not something everyone goes out and learns. So I think that it may be helpful for us at some point in the very near future, because unfortunately, I don't think society is going to change overnight, and this is never going to happen again. But it may be helpful for us to provide some education, some background, and just something for people to say, to just feel some comfort that, no, there is a process. I know that there's playbook is a bad word, but a playbook for how these things are handled. So I think it would go a long way in kind of cooling some emotions. That's it.
Member Donovan.
Okay.
I sort of agree with you, Mr. Shabilia, and if people want to get started on that education, our student handbook, page 27 for pre-K to grade 8, there's 10 pages of Mass General Law regarding student discipline, from suspensions, long-term, short-term, exclusions, what you have to do to be expelled, emergency removals. There's a lot of legalese, but it's in there. And it's something I went to over the weekend, too, just to see. I just want to, I don't think we can thank our staff members enough as well for welcoming the kids in today and making them feel safe and focusing on what they're there for, to learn. And I'm sure there was a lot of emotion for them as well. And I appreciate the patience everyone has shown. I know it was an extremely emotional weekend, but just to allow the process to work through, and for people to be very purposeful of what has to be done, not only to protect all those kids who were, in a way, victims, and the staff, but also we have to consider the rights of those who are who are in the middle of it. And hopefully we're done for a while. If you've been around Methuen, you know we have kind of a rich history with these kind of actions. But hopefully the kids have gotten the message today with the help of the staff. So here we go, and we move on, I hope. And thank you, Dr. Kwong and Mayor Perry and everybody, even the committee. I know everyone worked overtime dealing with concerns.
I just want to add, I want to thank the mental health staff in the schools for supporting the students who are coming in who are traumatized. And just remind parents that if their students need more support, we do have guidance staff that is fantastic, and they're there to help. You know, I'm not going to reiterate everything everyone said, but I too want to thank Dr. Kwong and the police department for everything they've done this weekend. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm just going to repeat everything everyone else has said.
I feel like everybody here has kind of hit every point that we want to make. I know that you worked hard. I know that you did a lot, that you went above and beyond. And I, as a parent and a school committee member, appreciate that. I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done surrounding this area. And I appreciate your time in all of that. And for parents, like, we hear you, we see you, you know, it's speaking up is great, and showing up is great, but there are right places and right times to do it. And, you know, after reading a lot on Facebook, it's hard to not engage. But I just want to say, if you're interested in something, if you have a concern, obviously go to your school principal, go to, you know, your teachers or whatever. But if you need to take the next step, we're here, and we are happy to listen. You just have to show up. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does the committee have any questions about the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services report? Member Shabilia.
Going through the focused monitoring review update, I went to that link, and as of 4:30 this afternoon, it was still the 2021 report. So,
Okay.
and I know you have no control of that, I'm just letting you know that
Okay.
I wanted to take a look at it, but it wasn't there yet.
I can share the report out through the superintendent to you all, just so that you can review it.
Yeah, I just want to take a look. I mean, if it's worthy of you noting for us, I feel like it's worthy of me actually reading the thing.
Sure.
So, to the Mental Health Student Advisory, Parent-Student Advisory Council, this is something that gets discussed a lot in my house because, as you know, my wife was one of the only adults on this committee. I guess I want to know how it's being advertised, because you don't see it on Facebook. There's not really a central way to advertise it. I don't see it, and granted, I'm just getting the email blast from the Marsh, but I don't see it there. So how are we recruiting people? Which I know, before you answer that, is the hardest thing to do in any area ever, all the time. So I want to put that out front.
I will follow up with Mr. Crocker to see the
All right.
best way to do that.
Any other questions? Member Willett?
I know we're going to be starting with the residency enforcement, and I know I spoke to the superintendent about making sure that the hotline information is online. So that was something that still needs to be done, to my knowledge.
So it was posted today.
Okay, excellent.
So it's online, and the message is out there, so, yep, it's all set.
And then, since we just started back, it's not going to be anything on it reflected anyways, but.
Correct.
Yeah, I appreciate the reports as always.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Does the committee have any questions about the Director of Human Resources report?
It's a good one. Sorry.
Member Shabilia?
I guess first and foremost, if we could, is it possible to break down the professional staff by licensure? So for example, I assume in professional staff, looking at the Marsh saying 3, is one of those 3 teachers? Is it 2 teachers and a nurse? Is it 2 nurses and a teacher? I don't know what that represents, because professional staff is such a big piece.
Yeah, you know what I'll do, because we added the column for unit, and I think we live by this, and the public doesn't live by that, so we automatically know what unit A, B, and C means. So we can actually add the units underneath that. Do you know what I mean? Professional staff is unit A and B, and PAs is unit C. So anything you see that's A and B is falling under professional staff.
So this doesn't include nurses, it doesn't include open janitorial spots, any food service positions?
This did not. This was just
No.
focused on student-facing initially.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there are some, no, I should take that back, because we had some lunch monitors in here that were being filled.
There was a nursing position in here.
The nursing is professional staff, I'm sorry. Nurses is their own unit, I apologize.
I was gonna say, because they're Unit D?
They're not so Unit D secretaries, we wouldn't add that to this for, I mean, we can. I mean, we don't have any openings.
The end of Timony has nurses under nurses.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, I guess just, if we could add that, it would just make it easier to understand. And I guess I just want to call out that the way these definitions are written, these are posted positions. So if we don't have I'm going to use the nurses because they were here tonight. If we don't have a nurse position posted, it's not being counted as a vacant professional staff position. Correct?
So if it's not necessarily, but yes. So if it's in here, it's a budgeted position in FY '25 that is not filled or contracted. At some point was vacant. At some point they were vacant, right? We filled at some point these were vacant somehow, whether it was unfilled from last year, whatever the situation, it was vacant. So we've added that each time. So the good news is, we're cutting it down. We're not at zero. I don't know any district that is right now at zero, meaning 0 vacancies or all filled, right? Nobody has that. So the indication here is, what do we have left really to fill? What kind of positions are they? And these are the ones you should see posted. Anything that's vacant should be what you see posted, which that they are.
Okay.
Am I missing? I am sorry, I totally apologize if I'm not understanding.
Nope, that answers the question. Thank you.
Member Zologlio.
Thank you. Not to, I don't want to go into too much about details about that, but when, regarding the nurses, these, the nurse that came up, I'm just including when she was saying all these positions that were cut, can you go over and explain that real quick?
Sure, so the only positions that are open right now, or were open, that we actually never closed the posting, is the Timony nurse. And Ms. Bozak can help me here, but to make sure, and that posting is still open. I sent a notice to the families. We did receive some resumes, which was fabulous, so we're interviewing folks this week, actually, so there's some progress being made there. So the only positions open, there are currently 2 full-time RNs at the Marsh and a CNA. Until today, there were 2 full-time RNs at the Tenny and a CNA.
Still not a vacancy, though.
Right, not a vacancy because she's on leave. CGS, we have 2 full-time RNs. One is in training, so just hired and being trained. The high school, we don't have 2 full FTEs right now, so we're looking for some additional coverage at the high school. And the Branch Street has 1 full-time RN, which is what they are expected to have. And the high school also has a medical assistant. All of the schools have a medical assistant.
Except the CGS.
Except the CGS, and so we've actually provided the medical assistant from the Marsh to be at the CGS right now while the nurse there trains the new RN on the school staff. So it's challenging, undoubtedly, and I appreciate Ms. Dwyer saying that we're communicating, because we are. We're trying to, we pulled all the nurses in, I'd say a week before school started, when we realized we're not getting, it's the same repeat, right? Rewind, repeat. We're not getting applicants. And then we also had a resignation that we were not expecting. So that posed some different challenges for us to open school and not just hope and wait somebody would apply. We had to have a plan, and so we with the nurses' help, and everybody's getting compensated accordingly to do this. It doesn't help the stress of the day, so don't misunderstand me, right? But there's contract language that compensates folks to do this. But the 2 nurses at the CGS have been the most veteran, and 1 volunteered to go to the Timony to get the school open, which we are deeply appreciative of her service. And we're expecting a second nurse to be onboarded to then work with her to train to be the school nurse, and then they'll all go back to their right schools. So we're trying to do some on-the-job training. So 1 Timony hired nurse is currently at the CGS, currently in that office, being trained by one of the CGS nurses. The most challenging office right now, undoubtedly, is the Timony. So I mean, it's the most challenging because we're down a full nurse right now, and so until we get that full nurse onboarded, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And so we actually met with them today. We promised we'd meet with them in a couple weeks after school started just to see. They gave us some, helpful things that we can do just to help, remind folks of not sending people to the nurses if it's really not something that the nurse has to evaluate, just because they are really stressed right now. And so we're working through all of that with them. Nobody here is saying that we are in a super awesome position right now with nurses. But, you know, what I just read is what we have currently for the FTEs. Ms. Bozak and Ms. McCarthy have been feverishly trying to get substitutes in as well. That's also a challenge, and there's some memos here at the end that will help us, we think, for some per diem staff. So I think this week we have one new substitute being trained, so she's going from each building to the building, so she is, you know, understands the office and the space, so she's going to the buildings as well as a substitute, and we have another substitute that has been able to give us a few more days. So it's challenging because we don't have subs that can just come in for 12 weeks or half a year, but we're working to fill as many of those opportunities as we can and be creative, right? LPNs is another, we posted for LPNs just to see what we could get as well. Not a ton of applicants, and unfortunately, the amount of money we can provide for them is not enough. So that has been put upon us as well, what we're paying them for the per diem, right? You understand, that's coming later in the packet.
Member Maxwell.
Just a quick question. I know you said each school, for the most part, has 2 and 1 MA. The woman that spoke earlier, she mentioned something about being out of compliance because it's 1 nurse to every 500 students. Is that accurate? And if so, does that MA count as the 3rd? No. Okay.
No. So I believe what she's, and I'm going to look to Ms. Bozak potentially for this, but what she's referring to is the Massachusetts Nurses Association recommendations and guidelines. So there are forms that they're filling out every day if and when they're by themselves. So the nurse at the Timony is the only RN, right? So there's a form that she's filling out every day. We're giving her support staff to help her with the tasks of the forms and filing and things like that are not student-facing, but she is the only one who can administer meds, right, and see students who are on timed visits to the nurse and such.
So we're okay with like state, not recommendations, but state standards, like we have the nurses that we need?
I mean, once we're all hired, we will.
Okay.
You know, and I think that after COVID, adding the medical assistants was critical because of the size of the buildings. You know, ideally, we might look at additional models. LPNs can actually service more students than a medical assistant. That's something that we actually had a long conversation about with the nurses when we met with them. You know, what is that? They understand it much better than we do about the licensure, right? What can the RNs have to supervise all of those staff? But what an LPN can do, they have their own license that they're working under. A CNA doesn't have a license, right? They can't be administering and kind of servicing students. So it's different challenges that I think we're being met with. I think I have colleagues in other districts who have different models that we're reaching out to and saying, you know, how many of you guys, how many nurses, how many LPNs, how do you divvy it up, you know, things like that. I think that conversation is pretty open right now because we're all a lot in similar conversations. And it's hard because we can't compete with some of the pay in surrounding towns. And that has been probably our biggest challenge. Yeah. To date, I'm not saying challenge in general, but just right now, we can't compete with some of the pay scale.
Is there any other discussion? Member Donovan.
So I just have a question, looking at the vacancies, especially in the PA column. Are the BBEs, are all those positions at the schools filled? And because I'm assuming they're running every day.
That's a good question. I will ask. I think we're doing okay with BBEs. We actually had a lot that came back from last year, which was
good,
really helpful. Yeah, that was really nice to see. But I can check and get back to you on the BBEs.
They certainly play a big role
I know we have a couple in classrooms already,
Yeah.
serving.
And there, and
Leads.
days people are out sick, that just adds to it.
Right.
How about at the high school with the math teacher? How is that, is the classes being covered, or?
So the math teacher position, and Dr. Golofsky, if I misspeak, please help me. I believe that it was dissolved, meaning that the courses, that teacher's to be determined schedule was actually put into, so the math classes are just got a little larger.
Worked into other, okay, thank you.
That happened in time, right? Like that's what August was, right? Making sure like we made those decisions in time to make some of those changes so that we weren't having a whole schedule of students with no teacher trying to fill that. So that decision, I know Dr. Golofsky was involved in that with the high school, working with them.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a situation where a particular course had some sections that happened to be smaller in numbers, so we could collapse the sections and condense them, so as not to overfill other courses. So that's what happened there.
Okay, thank you.
There was a question, if I could ask the committee. I think that this format is likable. Yes? The question that Ms. McCarthy had is, does it make sense to start removing the filled lines? Because it's taken up a lot of space and they're filled, so we don't necessarily worry as much about those, and only keep the vacant contracted service filled posting positions. Totally up to you, but she asked if that is, that will make it easier to read or review.
Yeah.
I promised I would ask.
I would just ask that if it's filled between meetings, that we leave it as filled.
Yeah.
As opposed, like, if it
Newly
says
filled,
filled
yeah, yep.
here, then sure, get rid of it. But if
Got it.
it's vacant on this one, I want to see that it got filled. I don't just want to see it disappear.
Understand. So take away the filled that are filled, concretely filled. Anything that changes, we would show a transition month of change. Totally get.
We've come so far from that chart with the tiny little.
We have come so far. The color coding, I think we made the font actually on this probably 14. So
I don't even need to squint to read this. This is, so.
there's a lot here, but we're working through that.
Remember what?
Thank you. Just a quick question. With the school psychologist, there are a couple of positions that have not been filled, and that's been for months ongoing. Now, that's predominantly involved in testing of students?
Correct.
Are we outsourcing that?
Correct.
Okay. And what's the differential in that? Is that astronomical? Because that must be a costly thing to test the students as opposed to hiring.
All of the contracted services are, significantly higher than what a actual budgeted position would be. This is what we are working through right now. The cost of all of these come with a cost. What did we budget for? What's the actual cost? What did we collapse? What do we not need? There are positions, we're probably meeting every week at this point. There are one-to-ones that are no longer needed. We are adding one-to-ones on IEPs, right? It's a real, talk about a fluid situation. Special education is incredibly fluid. And so there's 4 of us, myself, Ms. Boyces, Ms. Bozak, and Ms. McCarthy, that are meeting to really get a handle on the people, positions, contracted service, which at some point here, right, we're going to bring Mr. Goslin in on that conversation to now say, all right, what do we have budgeted in the operating budget? What do we have in circuit breaker, right? What did we budget for in contracted services already, right? So there's going to be a balancing that we're going to already be doing, which we should be.
So we don't have like a discernible backlog of cases to do testing of students.
No.
I hate to toss that out there. We would, within the confines of outsourcing and your staff working on these.
Contracted services, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure on that. And we have no
Working hard.
prospects, right? Because that was the thing, it was a district-wide psychologist and another psychologist, so there's 2. That's significant, so that was the thing that was, I know the nurses was something that collectively were
2
concerned about.
full-time, we filled the one
2
at the high school.
full-time,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
2 full-time, no prospects.
Okay.
No applicants.
And we do have Mr. Crocker's reaching out to every single university that has a school psychologist
And
program.
he's phenomenal, so, yeah.
You know, it's hard when not every college has that program and license. And some of the colleges in Boston already have, like, strong relationships with Boston Public Schools, Cambridge, right? That's where their graduates go in partnership. So that one's a significant challenge.
And it's a challenge across communities at this point. Like, we're seeing other districts reaching out, saying, what's everybody's status? Because they're down more than 2 school psychologists.
Yep, thank you. I appreciate it.
Member Shabilia?
On that note, what I'd really like to see on our next agenda is a presentation from the Leahy Community Behavioral Health Center as to how they can help. I mean, it's no secret that we are in the same boat as everyone else, hurting for mental health staff. It's no secret that the mental health needs are going to be more than we can ever meet. If we could get the team from the CBHC to come in and kind of hit a couple of main topics, and I wrote myself a note here. Their mobile crisis intervention, their urgent behavior, healthcare walk-in care, and their core services being therapy, medication management, community support specialties, and therapeutic group offerings. I think that would, if nothing else, be educational for us, as well as the community, and hopefully to Ms. Bozak, the team, and everybody else. Because if we can get something that's already paid for, Ian smiled, so it's, I see it as a win-win.
Sure. We'll talk to John Crocker. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question about especially the special ed vacancies. I'm a little bit concerned that we have one-on-ones that are vacant. That's very troublesome to me. But my other concern is, I don't know how to quantify this, but how many compensatory services are we racking up by not having these services filled? And are we making the notifications to the parents effectively that their children we're not in compliance with their IEPs at this point?
So to answer the latter question, in those scenarios where there is a disruption in services, the letters have gone out to those families.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Member DeZoglio.
I'm just curious, especially with the psychology positions opening, is it because we're not filling them because of the salaries as well? Are we?
No, we want them. If you know anybody, send them our way.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, like, is it no applicants coming because?
No, there just aren't.
0 applicants.
There's no
Just-
supply for the demand. I mean,
All
all
right.
of, again, this is the same, nursing is the tough one, school psychologist, special education. Our threads of listservs are somewhat, we're all in good company of I need this sub-separate teacher, what do you guys have? And I'm like, don't come here, like, we're good, right? So, those 3 categories, I would say, all of us are seeing on our listservs, human resources, superintendent, director of special education listservs. Those are the ones that are, everybody is just trying to figure out what to do now.
So it's just not enough people are doing
There's
that?
not enough supply for the demand,
Okay.
100%. They're not, I can't tell you how many times I keep telling folks in teacher education prep programs, like, students' kids need to come out of those programs with like dual licenses, right? You get them the elementary plus special education plus ESL, right? This is probably one of the first years we have all of our ESL positions filled, but that's typically a hard one as well. What are you knocking on wood? Oh, God, I know, needed today. I'm like, what are you doing? But yes, I'm sorry, train of thought. But those 3 categories are definitely the hardest. Not enough supply for the demand.
Okay.
Sorry, yes, just to say it lightly.
All right.
And gone are I'm sorry, one last statement. But gone are the days of when you would post an elementary position and you'd get like 50 applicants. Gone. you get maybe 2, maybe 1. You know, a handful is like joyous for the principals to see. So it's a completely different environment of supply versus the demand that all school districts are asking for, so. But anyway, thank you.
Next up, facilities report. Says none.
Resume in October, thank you.
Okay. Member Shabilia has a question on the none.
Nope, just a thank you. Last week in the line at the marsh, it was asked for me to reach out to you on the sign that says "Do not enter" in the back part. Apparently, some folks have taken it upon themselves to mold the rules to fit them better. Because it used to say 8 to 9. So
We changed it.
the first drop-off was a mess, and the crossing guard had mentioned it to me as I talked to him on my way out of the parking lot every morning. Was there this morning. The SRO and the crossing guard both stopped me to say thank you. They fixed the sign. Everyone is extremely happy, and it made me really think about the small victories in life
I'll take it.
because they were thrilled, and I just thank you. It was something. It was one text message, and the thing was fixed. I wish everything could be that easy.
Me too, but you're welcome.
Speaking of other thank yous for facilities, I want to thank you for the new flag at the CGS. I have gotten more compliments on that new flag, so thank you for replacing it.
I'll take that too, that's great. Flags and signs, I love it. The simple things, I think you're right. If it makes it make things work better, right, then that's what we have to aim for.
All right, out-of-school suspensions and other disciplinary actions report, there is none. Are there any questions on that? No. All right, old business and other pending matters. Superintendent, will you please start the discussion on the transportation start of school?
Sure, so I'll call up, Rich is with us tonight. We'll bring him on up, waiting patiently. Supposed to be first on the agenda, but I should have told him first on the agenda typically means around an hour in. Yeah, okay, he knew, he knew what we were doing, it was all good. So I think what we want to do tonight is give you a little bit of an update that we said we would give you and potentially take some action here tonight and what that looks like and what we need to do, how to execute. I don't know who wants to go first. Oh, he needs a microphone. Oh, I'd love to give him mine. Thank you, Mr. Lefty.
Thank you. I'd like to say it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm not sure yet. But as the superintendent mentioned, we have an update. Since the start of school, the transportation has gotten progressively better each day. I don't have the report for today yet, but as of Friday, the major issues were confined just to the afternoon, which meant that the morning routes are running pretty well. But you had essentially 6 buses in the afternoon that were still running very late. And over the weekend, Dr. Kwong and I both received an invitation to meet with Beacon and Trombley, your transportation contractor. That meeting is set for Thursday afternoon, and I'm hopeful that we may be able to resolve some of these issues. Over the weekend, I spoke with one of my transportation routers and sent her some information that I had, and she and I discussed how to fix the routes. We're of the opinion that we can fix them relatively quickly. It will require some additional resources by Trombley to fix them. We're hoping to be able to do this cost neutral, but that would be open to question at this point. In the meantime, I had drafted for Dr. Kwong and for the committee's consideration a notice to Beacon or to Trombley that they are actually in default of the contract. That starts the process of fixing it. Once the letter is issued, they have 5 days to respond, they have 10 days to fix it. And I would suggest and recommend to the committee that Dr. Kwong be authorized to issue such a letter pursuant to your attorney reviewing it, obviously, if we are not satisfied with what results from the Thursday meeting. Furthermore, if the committee is so inclined, I would offer to go into Trombley to their routing person, sit with your transportation manager, and actually fix the routes, now that we have an idea of how to do that. But I would need access to their system to be able to do that, so I would have to do that in their office. I would offer it. They may decline. They may not want me playing on their system, but I at least feel that it would be prudent to at least make the offer, fix the routes, determine what it's going to cost, what additional resources would be necessary to do it. We can fight over the money later on, but the fact of the matter is they cannot perform this contract the way it is written and the way they have agreed, and they have a performance bond posted to be able to pay for the requirements to fix it. And I would suggest and recommend to the committee that we start to pursue that.
And can I add something, just so that you are aware? So after Rich sent me the documents and we had our conversation late last week, I did have a conversation with Attorney McNulty about this. He's the one that has done our contracts with Trombley before and is the contract attorney from Mike Maccaro's office. So everything that Rich just said is on the up and up, and he reviewed the letter that he sent me on Thursday or Friday of last week. It is something that he uses with other districts as well. So that has been reviewed. Doing this, he said he's working with another district who's in the same position right now, not here, but on the South Shore. So this does seem to be the action that should be taken at this point, so we can begin that negotiation and conversation with Trombley and NRT go begin on Thursday. I think we need to do it.
Member DeZalglio.
I've been saying this for like 5 years now, so I've been,
So your yes vote?
so yeah, that's
Fantastic.
a no-brainer. But quick question though,
love
once
it.
we issue the letter, can we also, like you said, you want to go in and you would have to go into Trombley and look at their routes. When we issue that default, can we use that leverage in the sense of saying, listen, one of the things that we want to do is come in and work your system? Like you said, they could decline it, but if we give them the default letter and we say, listen, this is one of the terms that we want to meet with you about is fix the routes, is that one of the ideas that you guys are going to come up with?
Well, my recommendation would be to wait till Thursday's meeting and see what they say.
Yeah.
I would offer tomorrow to go in and fix the routes before the meeting. If they want to do that, then I have the time and I have the ability, I think, to be able to go in and do that. And then Thursday meeting would be to discuss what the resources are and how are we going to pay for it, if we're going to pay for it. You know, my goal would be whatever we negotiate with them to be cost neutral to the district.
So the thing I want to say to the committee is of course, I'm doing a yes vote on the default letter, but the question I want to know is, with the committee, do we want to go in with that Thursday meeting, with that also applying as well? Yeah, okay, so we're having like that two-part agreement. Okay, we want you to go in and fix it. They decline, then we do the default letter as well.
I would ask you to authorize me to go in and negotiate a solution on your behalf.
Okay.
I can't make any decisions.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. I just want to talk with the committee on what they want to do as well.
Member Shabilia.
So likewise, I think it's an easy yes on the letter. I would have liked to have seen the letter. I assume it's relatively boilerplate. We're just authorizing.
It is.
Okay.
Would you like me to read it? Would that help? I have it electronically, and I'm sorry I don't have, but I could read it, just so you have it.
I mean, if,
Well, look at that. Would you like me to read it?
if you want to, I mean, you don't have to.
So pursuant to the contract for school transportation services between Trombley Motor Coach Services and the Methuen Public Schools pursuant to Section K, breach of contract termination procedure, paragraph B and C of the bid specifications made part of the contract, you are hereby notified that the continued failure of Trombley Motor Coach Services to provide the required transportation services for the start of the school year constitutes an issue of a serious nature. Therefore, if not rectified in accordance with the contract within the next 1 week period, dates are in there, okay. We will consider Trombley Motor Coach Services to be in default of the contract. It is our sincere hope that you will be able to provide the necessary drivers to fulfill your contractual obligations and that all routes will operate on schedule, respectively, Randy Quorum.
And
That was the letter that Attorney McNulty saw.
Right.
Okay. Andy.
I support the letter 100%. I would anticipate pushback on you being in their system, just like any other company. They're not going to want an outsider playing with their toys. It's just, I mean, I'm assuming you're going into that conversation with that expectation. However, if they can't fix the routes and meet, and we pull their bond, they're dead in the water for 5 years, right? They can't bid on additional work.
If they're in default in Massachusetts, typically they cannot bid on a new contract in the next 5 years.
So it's in their best interest, one way or another, to sit at the table with you and do
Yes.
the route reconfiguration.
Yes.
And my concern is, I would like to think it comes back as cost neutral, and I mean, 100% go you, but if it doesn't, do we have a ballpark of what it's gonna cost, and can we swing it?
We don't know.
No, not at this point.
Not even
Yeah, I don't think there's an understanding of what it would cost, and can we swing it? I think the answer is no. I mean, we have a fixed vote on non-net spending, right, from the city at this point. We would 100% push for the cost neutral. This is the contract, this is what we're gonna pay you, figure out how to make this work, if that's gonna help us go forward.
I mean, this is very much a unilateral.
Again, we can't guarantee that, but that's what we're hoping for.
Right. So being it's their breach, I would hope that we can hold that card of really screwing up the next 5 years for them, and hopefully they come to the table and play nice. But if not, I would not hesitate to vote to act on it.
You're all set, Member Maxwell?
I just wanted to know about the cost neutral and what it was going to cost us.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
And obviously, we can't do any, I mean, that would come back to you. I mean, that we can't do anything until, we tell you what the outcome has been.
Member Willett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not as well versed as the mayor and Member Shabilia on bidding contracts, but it was always conveyed to me as the lowest qualified bidder. So at this stage, they're not qualified to provide the service, and that's what is necessitating the default letter. Not only
So you're talking about the lowest qualified bidder, that would have been during the RFP process? We're well past that. Right now, there's a contract there in default. Has nothing to do with bidders.
But I'm just saying that the concept of, because people will say, I will bid, but then you have to, also, it's still your lowest, but you also have to be qualified to do the job. At this moment, we're saying they're not qualified to do the job, they're in default.
We're saying they're in breach
Of their contract.
of their contract.
I think-
Nothing to
I
do
think
with qualified,
what
nothing
I
to
we're-
do
think
with.
it's, in
talk-
layman's terms, right now, they're not meeting the standards. Is that enough? Okay. They're not meeting the standards right now.
If we were to bid today for this contract, given their past performance, they probably would not pass my due diligence to be a responsible bidder. So having a negative reference, even from Methuen, going into the next bid process, that in itself would preclude them from being a responsible bidder for any of the contracts, certainly in the Merrimack Valley, where all the superintendents know each other.
And then another aspect of it is because not only the late buses in the afternoon, right? They still don't have a workable app for tracking the buses. Is that in place yet, or is that?
My understanding is the app went into service on September 1.
Is that accurate? Because I thought we were told on September 16th, we were told.
Which app are we referring to, I guess is the question.
Beacon Connect.
Beacon Connect is not up and running fully. I did sit through a training today.
And we were promised that, right?
It's not up
That
and
would be
running yet.
operational, so that would be part of the.
That is an item on the agenda for Thursday's meeting, by the way.
Correct.
And again, I appreciate everything you're doing. I appreciate the superintendent, I appreciate Ian, and I also understand in terms of the confines of the initial RFP and the contract. And we're dealing with a culture that has to open up and reform itself, and we're going to do some reforms ourselves. And there's going to be ramifications with the default letter alone. It's going to be publicized. They're a well-known company. I see them all over the place. I see them going into Boston when I went to Beth Israel on a visit. So it's going to be a major factor. And I have confidence, I don't know if we have to do a motion to do the letter as well as approving. I'll make a motion that we issue a default letter, and that the motion will also include your presence at that meeting. So I'll make that as a formal motion.
Could I suggest an alternate, that you authorize the superintendent to issue the letter subsequent to Thursday's meeting?
Yeah. So I'll make the motion that the superintendent will issue the default letter, and that we want to have you present at that meeting on Thursday. Okay. So that'll be in the form of a motion.
Member Zoglio.
Thank you. So when you were talking just a second ago with Member Shabilia, when we issue the default letter and the bond and the bidding, and we pull that, they're not allowed to bid for 5 years?
We're not there yet.
No, I'm just curious. I'm just being an outsider, just curious question. What does that mean?
In 30B, when you bid a transportation contract, you ask certain questions, one of which is your current and past contracts. You have to provide letters of recommendation from at least usually 3 or 5 school districts that you're currently work for. And the other is a question, have you defaulted on any contract in Massachusetts within the last 10 years? Those are the typical questions that are in a transportation bid to make it 30B compliant.
Oh, and if we initiate the default, they can't be in that bidding process for not just our district?
Well, they can't answer the question that they haven't defaulted. And typically, I mean, any superintendent or any business manager who sees that they've defaulted certainly will follow up with that community before they consider who is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder.
Well, thank you. I was just curious about that. Thank you.
So do we need a motion to declare an emergency first before we do, or do we just need the motion to?
I chose this one first.
Okay. So we need to, so we have a motion to,
I'd like to separate them.
Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to retract my motion.
Okay.
I'm going to do a motion that the superintendent be authorized to issue the default letter. That'll be the first motion.
So the way I have it written, motion to authorize the superintendent to issue the approved letter of default to transportation vendors, Tremblay and NRT.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
moved by Member Willett, second by Member DiZoglio. Roll call, please, or just discussion first? Are we good? All right, roll call.
Yeah.
Member DiZoglio.
Yes.
Member Donovan. Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell.
Yes.
Shabilia, yes. Member Willett.
Yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
And then my second motion would be to authorize your presence at Thursday's meeting.
If you would authorize me to negotiate on your behalf at Thursday's meeting prior to or subsequent to, then that would give me the legs I need to stand on to go in and meet with them.
So I would make a motion to authorize your presence to negotiate on behalf of the school district
Yes.
in conjunction with the superintendent.
Correct.
Good?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Member Wilenzet.
Dan's feverishly typing.
That's okay. Seconded by Member Maxwell.
And folks at home, I'm not an attorney, so I'm doing it.
So it was moved by,
Member Willett, seconded by Member Maxwell.
all right. Member DiZoglio.
Yes.
Member Donovan. Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell.
Yes.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett.
Yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
That's it.
Thirdly,
Oh, thirdly.
Thirdly.
Oh,
I'd like to recommend to the school committee that you declare the transportation issue to be an emergency situation. The reason being that if we are subsequently issue the letter of default, if the committee has declared this to be an emergency, it allows us under Chapter 30B to procure services from another contractor on relatively short notice without having to go through the formal bid process.
That is correct. Confirmed with Attorney McNulty, that as well. Okay.
So I would like to motion that the transportation for Methuen Public Schools is an emergency that needs to be resolved immediately.
So to clarify the motion, motion is to declare transportation as an emergency under 30B.
Correct.
And I'll second that.
Motion by Member DiZoglio, second by Member Willett.
Member DiZoglio.
Yes.
Member Donovan. Yes. Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell.
Yes.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett.
Yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes, sorry.
Unanimous.
Excellent. Thank you.
And hopefully, we won't need that, but
Here's to hoping.
Thank you.
One
Be in touch
question
tomorrow.
before
Yes,
we
yes,
cut
sir.
you loose. In our last meeting, we talked about starting the RFP process.
yes.
Is that a draft in process? Is there something that you need from us, or are we waiting on?
I was waiting to resolve this year's issues.
issue,
Because
then
this
what?
year's issues will lead into the bid requirements going forward. But I anticipate to have a draft to the Transportation Subcommittee sometime around the middle of October.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. May I have a motion and a second to approve the three-year strategy plan for improvement 2024 to 2027?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member DiZoglio, seconded by Member Willett. Discussion.
So if I could, just let Dr. Golubsky speak for a few minutes on some of the somewhat minor, but some changes that were made from our previous discussion so that we can point those specific things out to you. We took all of those recommendations into account when we discussed any changes to this to present to you tonight. The hope is that we get this approved, and at the September 23rd meeting, I would present to you my 24-25 goals that would incorporate this strategy plan. That's the hope. Dr. Golubsky.
Thank you. So as Dr. Kwong mentioned, we incorporated the feedback that you shared with us last time we met. One of those notes being that there were quite a few key actions, and it appeared a little overwhelming. So we tried to streamline some of those, noting that many were in the same vein, and so we simplified some language there without necessarily eliminating where we plan to head. The data is still not available for those 24 numbers, so hopefully when Dr. Kwong presents her goals, I'll be able to provide you an updated plan with those baseline statistics. And then also, one piece that we changed or amended in Objective 2 in terms of the measures of progress, we had looked at the proportion of students utilizing the tiered mental health services, which was consistent with what we had done before. And Member Keegan had brought up the question about how do we know the effectiveness of those services or what the outcomes are for students that are engaging in those services? So we moved that to the measures of progress under Objective 3, whereas before it was just a general population statistic of the number of students with moderate to severe anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress. Under that is the percentage of students enrolled in our schools receiving tiered 2 or 3 services whose mental health has stabilized or improved. And so Mr. Crocker has built a pretty extensive spreadsheet to progress monitor, so every counselor will add in the students who are receiving tier 2 or 3 services, note which type of service, the duration of service, how they came to be in that service, which is interesting, whether it was a screener or it was written into an IEP, how they arrived in that treatment, and then we'll be able to track improvement. So having that population percentage along with that drilled down information we think will be helpful. And then I believe Member Maxwell had pointed out a discrepancy between a slide and what was presented in the PDF document in terms of priority language. We had meant for it to be, it was in the document, so that remains the same, and that would be what we'd be going for. Other than that, it's largely the same, and I tried to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and simpler for posting. Are there any questions?
Member Willett.
Thank you. I am in support of the proposal. I think it was a lot of detail, a lot of internal discussions, analysis. I think we're constantly doing data collection and establishing benchmarks and revisiting the benchmarks, and we've had this give and take on tests and services and goals, and I think it's very healthy when we do it at certain points during the school year. What I'm concerned about, again, there was an article in the paper, and this is going to probably impact our testing in the future, is that the question 2, if they repeal the MCAS test. And I just want to say for the folks at home is that we have our district standards for graduation, and people also have to abide by the MCAS standards and do that in tandem. The district standards and the MCAS standards. And 96% of students pass the MCAS eventually, even if it includes a portfolio. The 4%, it's extenuating circumstances beyond the control normally of the school system. So it's a very much of a chicken little, the sky is falling, and people are being tossed to the wayside in terms of the MCAS testing. And I think it's the standard for the planet, and it's going to impact, if question 2 passes, I think it's going to impact test scores across the Commonwealth. And you're going to have 300 school districts that will have their own empowerment of determining graduation standards. And again, if you look at the universe of if someone does the standards for graduation as established by the district, and they also pass the MCAS, that involves normally 99% of the student population. Tufts University, I would encourage everyone to read the report that they did the analysis on question 2. It's the Center of State Policy Analysis. What is being done by the MTA is unfair to the students, the parents, the school districts, the legacy of billions and billions of dollars because of ed reform of 1993, and that's going to be tossed out the window. You're going to have 300 separate systems of determining graduation requirements. And it's not impacting the special education population because they have portfolios. It's not impacting the vast majority of the students, almost 100%. So I wanted to just make that disclaimer, is that we analyze the test scores. We have benchmarks. We have strong graduation standards in Methuen, but this question too will throw a lot of things in flux across the Commonwealth, and I just don't think it's fair to all of our efforts as educators, as elected officials, as parents, as students, to dilute the system with question two. So I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Member Zoglio?
I'm just gonna be brief from both an educator and elected official standpoint, based off of Member Willett. From my I get that we need a standardized testing to determine what kids know. I don't think MCAS provides that. I think it has a certain amount of standards. I think it needs we need, as a state, needs a better standards, because I could tell you that, I know students that passed the MCAS that still don't know how to read, and they passed. And I think we need a standardized test that meets benchmarks where we know exactly where kids are struggling, where educators then can work with those kids. But we're so focused on MCAS as educators, we kind of miss the in-between sometimes. That's just my opinion. I believe in a standardized test that we could see where kids are. I just think MCAS isn't the solution. That's just my opinion.
Do you have any comments on the actual?
I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments about the, yes?
Yes,
if you do need to vote.
You do need to vote.
So I need a motion and a second to approve the three-year strategy plan for improvement, 2024-2027.
Second.
Moved by Member Willett, second by Member DeZoglio. We've had the discussion. I think we might have already even had the motion. I think we
Had already
did.
moved, Member
Yes.
DeZoglio already moved, Member Willett already seconded, so we're going
Perfect.
to a roll call.
So roll call, please.
Member DeZoglio.
Yes.
Donovan.
Yes.
Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell.
Yes.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett.
Yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. May I have a motion and a second to approve policy GBEB, staff conduct, first read?
So moved.
Moved by Member DeZoglio,
Second.
second by Member Donovan. Discussion.
I'll share where this is coming from. We don't have
Perfect.
one, number one. So we need one. This just is coming directly from MASC, so I don't see a need to alter it. And it also is an outcome of a suggested outcome from a personnel matter that we have recently had, that we vote this into place and have a staff code of conduct.
I just have a question about
Sure.
what the actual code of conduct is, because this sounds like a bunch of nothing to me.
I'm glad you said it.
I would like a staff code of conduct that actually has a code of conduct involved. This feels like a bunch of nothing to me, really.
I think the basis for this is the fact that staff need to familiarize themselves with the policies at hand that they need to adhere to and follow them, and also their behavior needs to emulate what we want students to.
I feel like that's very nebulous and not specific enough, like,
Open to edits.
sorry.
Just putting it out there.
I'm going to go with Member Willett.
So I always try to say, I'm gonna try to be as diplomatic as possible. I do the best I can, 13 years. I'm not really happy with the language at all. To me, it makes an assumption that you have to be Rain Man and absorb everything under the sun for all knowledge, all laws, all regulations, and I think it's way too much of a net to have information. I just thought it was like nebulous, I would say, I would describe it. I just think that if we have other school districts, then maybe we can examine their policies. I would encourage that. I just don't like how this language was devised.
I'd be
Thanks too
happy to,
much.
we can also bring into the policy subcommittee if you'd like for revision.
Yeah.
Table
Member
it.
Shabilia.
So that was going to be my exact suggestion.
Happy to do that.
I already made note that I would like to discuss the MASC policy review process, which I hope is making its way through the process.
If the check wasn't mailed out last week, it will be probably Wednesday.
Killing me, Ian.
Yeah.
So I have to agree with all of the commotion. I mean, this came from MASC?
It did, I mean, directly. It was handed to me by our attorneys during this case,
This
and
is
we
the
looked it up.
saddest little staff conduct policy I've seen in 20-some-odd years of being in a professional organization. However, I think...
I can't wait to see the revision. This is going to be great.
I think that it is probably in our best interest to approve this and get something in place, and then come back in 3 weeks when we have something more substantial. Because if this is coming out of a litigious avenue, we probably need something. So if we can keep this process moving, simultaneously working on what this probably should be, I don't think that we kind of cut off our nose to spite our face in this process. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that would look like if we do a first and final tonight on this to have it in place and then work on a revision of this dated tonight in the future. Right? Because if we're voting a first read, then it's not really in place yet. Or do we revise it before the second read?
Do you need it done tonight?
I mean, I don't need it done tonight. I mean, this was something I needed to execute at the beginning of the school year, which we're doing. And so it would be helpful to have it in place, in the next, probably by the next meeting, to have something with a revised tone that makes the school committee feel.
We vote yes on the first read.
Yeah.
We can come back with
Revisions for the second.
revisions for the second. It
Yes.
won't slow down the clock. It'll get you what you need.
Correct.
So that's going to be my vote.
Okay.
Would it slow down if we didn't do the first read tonight? And then
Yes.
we did? Okay.
Right, because we need 2 reads for the policy.
Member Willett.
The only questions I have is, don't we have existing case law if there's like misconduct that's present? And then don't we have an employee handbook that I know the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, they just went into a case decision about online conduct.
I mean, there's individual
No.
pieces, but not a general staff of code conduct, how people
Because-
are supposed to relate and react and work together collaboratively.
This looks like, if I was a chief of staff at the State House, I would think this was like an intern's work. This was not well-designed. I hate to say it, I want to be diplomatic, but I'm trying, the state is capitalized. I mean, this is not like 1984.
I think
We're not in a communist.
I think we're going to revise it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to, I got to stop, I'm sorry.
I completely understand how the school committee feels about this. I'm so happy I didn't write it, and I just pulled it from the MASC website to present this evening.
Member DiZoglio.
Yeah, just from when I read it, it's like an open ending, and I feel like it's up for the interpretation of
Sure.
the superintendent to decide what code of conduct is. And I just don't feel like it needs to be, like my policy professor said, you want every detail possible so nobody can define the interpretation of a policy. You have to be very specific and how it's supposed to be done and what defines whatever you're trying to do. So I feel like we can do revisions without voting on it, because we could just do a first and second reading one night. We can do that. But I guess, yeah, I just don't like how it's shaped.
Member Willett?
I don't want to attack the messenger, and I think the Massachusetts Association of School Committees does do outstanding work. It's just that this work product needs to be revised totally, from like first sentence to last sentence. So I don't want to have anything like I'm trying to insult somebody, or I just think that to protect the school department, the school committee, and the individuals like Member DiZoglio indicated, protect them as well. It's, like you said, it's too nebulous. It's too generalized. It just needs to be. So I just want to say that, for the record.
All right, we need a roll call.
Can I weigh in,
Oh,
please?
yes, sorry, Mayor.
No, that's okay. I got my hand up. I'm using all the tools I can. So the only thing I'd suggest is, when I read the policy first, I agree with all the comments that are being made. But I would caution us, it's a slippery slope when you start defining, attributes of a code of conduct, to the point where, you got to list almost everything. So I fully support the move to table or approve or table. A table would count as a first read anyway, so it's the same thing. And then my question is, will we have the policy subcommittee convene and kind of help put together a draft on that, or would that fall in the administration?
I would feel like the administration and the subcommittee would be working together, hand in hand, to fix it.
I don't know if it's necessarily a specific subcommittee meeting, though. I feel like this is an email.
Yeah, we could work on a shared draft,
Right.
get it done
And
efficiently.
I agree with the mayor that you don't want to get too into the weeds here, but the 14-year-old at McDonald's is getting more than this.
Yeah,
What?
I think, okay, yeah.
So, do we want to
I thought this was going to be the least controversial item on this committee feels very strongly about this presented policy.
So do we want to motion to approve or motion to table, given that they have the same exact net effect?
I'm going to do is, because it's a privileged motion, I'm going to, after all discussion has evaporated, I'm going to make a motion to table, because I don't want to endorse a first read. But the only thing I want to emphasize is that I would like our school attorney involved in the process with the subcommittee. Oh,
Sure.
Of course.
Yep.
So, all right. And that's, I'm going to make, everybody's all set?
Yeah.
Motion to table.
Second.
Motion to table by Member Willett, seconded by Member DiZoglio. Roll call, please.
Member DiZoglio?
Yes.
Member Donovan? Member Keegan?
Yes.
Member Maxwell?
Yes.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett?
Yes.
Mayor Perry?
Yes.
Oh, that was a fun one.
Does the committee have any questions on the end-of-year FY24 expenditure report? Member Willett?
I just had a quick question. I think we did an incredible job with the parking enhancements to the entrance to the high school. I think we have the account. Do we envision, now the kids are in school, can we do some lines in the parking lot? Are we going to do some upgrades to the parking lot itself?
Yeah, we definitely need some lines, as well as we're going to have somebody come in and trim back a lot of the trees that are starting to hang over.
Okay,
And we'll use those funds for that.
okay. All right, and I appreciate that, thank you. And then there was, that's got to be an executive session on the other thing. Okay, thank you.
Curiosity.
Member DiZoglio?
In that account, how much do we have to do the lines? Because I know we did the reduction last year on the parking fee. So I was just curious, how much do we have that in that account right now?
At the end of fiscal year '24, I believe it was 68,000. I'm looking because it's on this report.
Yeah, right. I know I read it somewhere and I just,
There you go. Yeah, 57.1, correct.
perfect. Right, that bad.
Are we still on the expenditures? Because I have a question on some of the others.
Yes, we're on the expenditures.
Okay, sorry, I'll wait.
Oh, you're up.
Well, no, so they're on the other lines, so I want to make sure what is FY '25 not brought forward at the city and set up in municipal?
We have
What I think it means?
revolving accounts and grants and food services have not been set up in FY '25 yet. The funds have not been closed in FY '24 and carried forward. So when we log into Munis, it shows as if there's $0 in there. I can go back to FY '24 and see what is in the accounts. They just haven't been carried forward yet. I believe they're working on closing out all the accounts.
I will take care of that. I'll take that action.
Thank you.
All right. Does the committee have any questions on the end-of-year FY '24 revolving funds report? All right. Does the committee have any questions on the end-of-year FY '24 grants report? I do. Does retired amounts mean that we have given back that money?
So in most cases, 80% of it has already been taken automatically from whichever grant system that grant was living in, and then we need to cut a check for the remaining 20%. That's how the systems work. But I put that note in so that it wouldn't be deceiving as if it appeared that we had more money than we had, because that's already been spoken for by MTRS, which is 9% of the professional salaries in that grant.
Well, there's a lot of lines that has stuff in the retirement allocation. So is that all that money we're giving back?
No, none of it's going back, it's going to retirement. So we're required, when we have our grants, we are required to have a certain percentage of that go to the MTRS. So we have to account for that when we're actually creating, so Lisa's just trying to account for the fact that it doesn't, although it looks like we might have 371,000, 126 of that is not ours to spend. 126 is actually going straight to MTRS, so it's an accounting piece.
I understand now.
That makes sense.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we weren't
Yeah, it is-
returning all that money. 'Cause
No,
that was
I
a
think we were
lot
trying to
of
find a
money.
way to show, like, there's money for balance, remaining balance, but there is money that is owed directly to MTRS from these grants that we have salaries, that a certain percentage does pay for that.
Got it. I
Okay.
understand now. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, I hope I did that correctly.
Member Shabilia.
Wow.
I'm getting tired.
On that, why not just mark it as an encumbrance? Because, I mean, retirement.
We have it marked as an encumbrance, but this form for you, we don't, I don't know. Actually, I'm just gonna stop talking. I'm probably
The encumbrances
more
aren't
tired than you
included there. It
guys.
just says year-to-date expense.
This is great that this is
I
recorded.
just wanted to make sure that you were aware.
It does. Encumbrance, right there.
Am I looking at a different report?
I mean,
Sorry,
it's-
I'm looking at the revolving account. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong report.
I get what the money is for, but we're essentially saying, here are your expenditures and encumbrances, your remaining balance, and oh, by the way, here's another an encumbrance, because it's money that's spent. Anyways, it's just for ease of conversation going forward.
That's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
Member Donovan,
One I don't recognize.
you need your
What,
microphone.
I'm sorry. What's the Tenny Memorial Fund?
Those are that's
Is that the scholarship?
the scholarships.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
for the high school seniors. Okay. A good giggle.
All right, are we good?
Turn this-
Does the committee have any questions on student activities accounts? There's an awful lot of money left in the class of 2024 in all 4 grammar schools. Is that all going to be transferred money to the high school?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
I usually make them do that at the beginning of the year, so.
All right. Does the committee have any questions on the end-of-year FY24 food services report? Oh, I have one other question. I'm sorry. I want to go back to the activities reports. Can you explain to me why none of them are assigned?
Yes, because we made copies before they were sent out through DocuSign. So the copies, I believe the copies online are actually signed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Maxwell.
I know you just asked about the class of 2024 having, you said that goes to that grade level at the high school?
Correct.
Okay.
It stays with the kids.
Okay.
Yep.
Member Shabilia.
So going back to where we started the conversation for the food service, I just want to call out as one of our small victories that we talked about earlier, these share tables, and small victories, right? And the fact that these non-perishables that are sitting on the shelf at the end of the week are being put back into the backpack program, which I think is absolutely worth noting. And if we can kind of push that concept where these kids, instead of throwing away their completely sealed bag of whatever goes on the table, I think it's paid for. Why throw it into the dump? But on this note, I did have a conversation with the director of school nutrition services this morning. I am going to meet with him briefly on Wednesday, and I think, and I'd be looking for the consensus of the committee, is this something subcommittee worthy when we're going to talk to Mr. Friday about school lunches and the process and the presentation and all these things that have to happen? Or is this, I don't want it to be a one-off, and I don't want him to be bombarded. And like I said to him in my email this morning, he's caught a lot of grief over the last 3 years, and I think that we can be more strategic and diplomatic in how we handle this. So that's kind of why I want to figure out how that approach is going to go.
I would say, are you asking a question?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I have a thought about it. I think when we tried to set this up before with Member Santos, it was really going to be sort of just a regular opportunity for her to see the cafeterias, meet with Mr. Frady. Other members may want to join, you just can't have more than 3 kind of come along, because there's not necessarily school committee business happening during those meetings. So that was how we approached it the first time. So I would recommend approaching it that way, that if there are opportunities and people want to come along to the visits, come to meetings, we just can't have more than 3 people do that at a time, to keep that open for members who want to come. And then if it is just you, reporting back out would be helpful, but I think we asked this question when Member Santos wanted to do this, and we didn't need it to be a subcommittee per se, because we're not looking to revise policy, work on contracts, things like that. That would require a subcommittee, posting agendas and working through that way.
All right.
That was my 2 cents.
I will come back next session with an update and some events and plans and stuff.
Great.
Let you know.
Member Willett.
Thank you. I think in terms of like a fact-finding mission, I have confidence in Member Shabilia. The only thing I would encourage is that we do some type of surveying of the parents and I love the surveys, the parents and the kids, because again, I want to, beyond just the word on the street, I want to have something that's quantifiable, measurable, that's given to the parents in and the students. I think we did a great job when I talked about doing a survey on the cell phones, and we reached out to the teachers. I think the same thing with transportation, the same thing with the food service, is that instead of being online with complaints or individual complaints to members of the committee, and it has to be some type of vehicle online for the industry to have some type of measurable, quantifiable survey that we finally send home to the parents and the kids, have them fill it out, engage how many people are participating in the survey, what's that universe, positive feedback, negative feedback, what needs to be improved. And again, it's something that it's being paid for by the taxpayers because of the millionaire's tax. And it's something we want to encourage. The breakfast, the lunch, the backpack program, novel ideas about putting surplus for the backpack program, suggestions, meal selections, quality, all those factors. I want to have that in some type of survey. There has to be some type of survey vehicle with that industry, has to be. So that would be the only thing I would advise as well. Thank you.
Member Donovan?
Just real quick. So what are you going to be doing, Dan?
That's a wonderful question.
No, I'm just curious because, I mean, so much of, Mr. Frady took such a hit in the last couple of months that, and he couldn't respond. And so I'm glad we're doing what we can to understand better. But we also have to keep in mind he lives and dies by some pretty stringent laws and requirements and audits. So I'm just curious, what's the purpose?
So let me give you an example.
Yeah, please.
This morning, in the 20-minute conversation we had over the phone, I raised a question to him about allergies, which I've gotten quite a few times from different parents, and
Yeah.
my own son being lactose intolerant, it's an issue that has been questioned. When I asked him, and he walked me through the process, even in just a linear fashion, we learned that despite us putting these allergies into Infinite Campus doesn't flow into his system. So unless your doctor is sending in a note and it's getting logged in the system by him, when that kid punches out at the end of the day, at the end of that line, he's telling me it's not there. And that was something we discovered this morning in a 20-minute conversation.
I don't know if that's true.
I don't know.
That is what he said, and we
I've
used.
seen the screens and I've seen alerts on there.
But those.
But he's saying there's no,
when they're
there's no talking
going.
to each other, so Infinite Campus information is not flowing, that
So it would have to
information's
be-
not flowing
okay. So it would have to be inputted in there.
manually.
I did see them manually inputting that
Yeah.
last week with the
Okay.
papers.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's
So
labor
what-
intensive.
So my request to him, and he, not to speak for him, but we had a great conversation, and he's on the same page. I think right now it's really my first meeting with him. I want to understand where the rules are, what the rules are, where they come from, how the districts may differ, how we handle things like a request versus an allergy, and what kind of opportunities may be available to us. Him and I both agreed, no matter how good we are, there's always opportunity for improvement. And I don't want to go into this saying the cafeteria is bad, we need to fix it, because I don't know if that's it. And, we discussed the menu that was shared, and he said, we're all ordering from the same vendor. The maple syrup on the menu is the maple syrup. It's the ChatGPT flowery language that makes some of these menus better. And we're going to discuss. A lot of this may be resulting education. There may be some recommended improvements. I'm really following his lead at this point. I think he's excited about having the engagement from us,
I do too.
which I 100% support.
I don't disagree with you. I think there's a lot that goes into his department. And that none of us can know all the details. And I think initially when we had some conversation about it with Member Santos, I remember being in the room and just in an hour conversation, I learned more, she learned more, just about like, we don't get uncooked food, it all comes cooked. Like, that's just something super simple. People don't realize that, right? So we're not cooking food, we're heating it, right? And so just education on that level of what is it, how it comes, how we portion size. I think there is an aspect of that and how we can better put that out there. He has a wonderful webpage that has all of that, but people aren't going to that either. So I think and he will welcome the conversation and opportunity.
And I know that it's tough for him. I know that him and the assistant director were here today because they had 4 staff people missing. And I know that they're out most days, you know, serving food so kids eat. So I appreciate anything he wants to put on the table. And I did tell him today in the conversation, I'm following his lead. He's excited about this, and
Yeah, I think
if I can get a taco boat out of the deal like I used to when I was 8, it's a win.
Member
we'll all have our
Maxwell.
favorite meals. We already know what the mayor's is, the bologna and cheese. Yours is a taco bowl. Everybody will have a favorite meal of the cafeteria before this is over. Done.
Member Maxwell.
Couple things. So I don't want to take away from the students and the parents that are concerned with what the kids are actually eating, because a lot of it is, I don't think that I would eat a lot of it as an adult, so I worry about that, and I don't want this to come across to parents as if we really don't care what their kids are actually getting. Aside from that, I have done a lot of digging into other school districts' lunch menu, and I know you say that it's just like the language and fluffing up the language, but it's not. It's actually different food, and it's better food, and it's better quality food. So the other concern I have is I didn't know we weren't cooking the food. I thought we're just reheating like boxed meals.
That's how all of the food comes to us, is already cooked, so
Yeah, I
it's
didn't know that.
reheated. So like, we don't cook hamburger patties from raw, the
Okay.
chicken patties are
Sure.
not raw.
But we're
Nothing-
preparing the food.
We're preparing the food,
Got it,
right, I'm
okay.
sorry, yeah, we're preparing the food, but it's mostly a reheating system that we do to actually,
Those were my only
Send them.
2 points. I just wanted to.
yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm not exactly versed on this. Do we provide breakfast for the kids in the
Yes.
morning? Okay. Now, one of the things that I read was, if the kids are late on the bus, are we still providing them
Yes.
breakfast? Okay, I just wanted to make sure on that, because
Kids get what they need, and they typically
Okay.
will either walk to their classroom. They might not be able to eat in the cafeteria, but they absolutely are getting grab-and-go breakfasts. And, I mean, I was following a train of kids the other day with their cereal and milk and their fruit, heading back to their classroom, getting off of the bus.
so there is protocol that teachers allow. if they-
100%.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure on that, okay.
100%
All
kids
right.
are getting breakfast.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And reminded often about it, yes, yep.
Member Donovan.
Just quickly, when will you be going for lunch?
I mean, nothing is scheduled yet, but I'll call you. You come with me.
Yeah, I think it would be a good experience for all of us, although we all can't show up for obvious reasons, but,
I would venture to guess that if we wanted to go in small groups, he would be delighted.
we'll let them get through the next week, though.
Right,
Yeah, I
right.
mean, there's a lot going on.
I mean, I'm going to meet with him Wednesday. I will figure out a few things and put some
Report
stuff
back.
on the table for everybody.
Thank you.
All right, may I have a motion and a second to approve the proposal to increase school nurse per diem rate?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by member Willett, second by member DiZoglio. Discussion.
We need it, thank you.
All right,
There's no discussion, I think you already know why we're putting this forward today.
Yes.
It just, we do need to up, that we haven't done it in a while, and we're just not getting any, it's too low of a price per diem to even get qualified candidates.
roll call, please.
Yes.
Member Donovan. Yes. Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell.
Yes.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett?
Yes.
Mayor Perry?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right, may I have a motion and a second to approve the proposal to establish LPN per diem rate?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Willett, second by Member DiZoglio. Discussion. Member Maxwell.
This might be a silly question, but is this included in our current budget?
Yes, it is included in our current budget, because right now, we have a substitute line for all of our professional staff. So this is coming from that line for the nurses. I'm paying out right now through that line for the nurses who are floating and subbing and doing all of that now. Perfect question.
Roll call, please.
Member DiZoglio?
Yes.
Member Donovan? Member Keegan?
Yes.
Member Maxwell?
Yes.
Shabilia, yes. Member Willett?
Yes.
Mayor Perry?
Yes.
Maybe no.
Unanimous.
Member Shabilia, would you please? Oh, yes, Member Donovan.
Do you think,
I think that's intended for me, isn't it?
Oh, no, she's asking a question, Mayor Perry.
Oh, okay, sorry.
given the presentation tonight from Nurse Dwyer, I'm wondering if it's something we would like to reconsider, given the money we are now dealing with, reinstating the floating nurse position.
Can we?
For, just,
It's not on the agenda, so I
I
don't
don't
believe
know.
we can,
Maybe,
we would need to put it on the agenda for next time.
Believe that was a budgetary decision back
so
at.
how would that all work, Mr.
That would
Gosselin?
mean we would have to add another position and another salary into the budget. At this point, I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe as we get further into the year and we're collecting those funds from unfilled positions, there might be available funds at that point, but I wouldn't recommend it right now. But that's just fine. I mean, it's at the will of the committee, but on the day that it's on the agenda.
I agree.
I know. Think about it. I'd be happy to put it on, request to put it on the agenda at the next meeting, and maybe we could get a breakdown of how much we are now spending, given we're down to one nurse, or the situation going on. I know you're not loving this, I can tell. I would love to see that, because it sounds like we are spending a lot of money. Would this be a way around it?
Right, Member Willett.
Again, this goes back to the casualties of being decimated by $4 or $5 million by the state and by Governor Healy. So that's something, we can send her a thank you letter. We can do that, but I mean, I agree with you. It's a lot of valid positions that I'd love to have restored. I mean, I would love to have a director of security too. It's tough. It's like, we made massive cutbacks, and it's just, you know, $4 to $5 million would be optimal for class sizes. And I agree, the presentation from the nurse representative tonight is something that definitely, I'm in 100% agreement, but we're confined by a limited budget that's bare bones. We reviewed it constantly, so, I mean, if we can, Ian can work his magic, and we have,
Yeah.
so okay. But I agree with you. Thank you.
We'll put it on the 10:15 business agenda and at least have an update and discussion.
Thank you. Member Shabilia, will you please give the committee an update on the audit?
That was actually a request just for a status update from Mayor Perry.
Yeah. So, and I appreciate that, Dan. So, we split the audit into two, as you know, and thank you, members Shabilia and members Donovan, for your input. So we have an operational and a financial audit. We've held the financial audit back so as not to get them crossing each other. Because if you'll recall, when we initially sent it out, feedback from the suppliers, 16 pulled it was, it's just too big, too large. So the operational audit is out. Questions are due in by next Thursday. and responses are due in by the Friday after. Once those come in, we will release the financial audit and go through a similar time frame of about 3 weeks to a month.
Can we make sure that it's on the agenda for the next meeting so we can get an update?
Sure.
All right, thank you. Other business from the committee? Member Willett?
Thank you. At some point in the future, can we have an executive session on security measures?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
The mayor and I are planning for that probably the September 23rd meeting.
Okay. Excellent, thank you.
Anything else? With no further business to discuss, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the business workshop session of September 9th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member DiZoglio, second by Member Donovan. Roll call?
Member DiZoglio.
Yes.
Member Donovan. Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell.
Us.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett.
Yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Good night, Methuen.